Hello everyone, welcome to another Narc Survivor live video. I hope everyone's doing okay. I tried to do a video earlier today when I went out for a walk to the park. But unfortunately I couldn't get any signal there, so I only managed to get a video uploaded on TikTok. But I couldn't do the live video there. So now I'm back in the room, and hopefully the signal will be good for this video. So in this one, I'm going to be talking about how all is not well for the narcissist and their new supply. Because I know how they make it seem. They make it seem like they're just able to move on after how they treated you, after all of the horrible things they did to you. They make it seem like they can just go off and live their best lives after everything they did to you, as though in fact there's nothing wrong with them and everything wrong with you. And that's how they were able to do those things to you, as though what they did was justified, as though you were deserving of that treatment. And that's why we're going to talk about this in this video. Because of course nobody deserves to be abused, no matter what they're meant to have done. No one deserves to be treated in that way. But I understand that it can be very confusing when you see them go off with a new supply and it seems like they're so much happier now. So let's talk about what happens with the narcissist after they abuse us. After they abuse you, what do? They deny it. They don't take responsibility for their actions. They deny that the abuse ever even occurred. Or they'll justify it. They'll minimize the severity of their behavior. Or they will just blame you. They will say that you provoked them to act in that way, or it was necessary, they had to do it. And of course then you sense that there's something wrong. So maybe you try and distance yourself. But then when you do that, they will try and hoover you. They will try and pull you back in. They will give you these fake apologies. They may even love bomb you. Or they will play the victim to gain sympathy from you. But then of course what happens? When they can no longer manipulate or control you, then many of them will just move on to a new target. And of course many of them can't move on. So then they will spread rumors about you or try to damage your reputation as a form of retaliation because they're struggling to move on. They can't find someone to replace you. And since they can't have you, then they feel like the only way they can relieve their pain is to destroy you. Or to make it so that you can't have anyone, or so that no one can have you. And they don't even feel bad for their actions. They're emotionally detached. So it's not so much that they don't feel bad for you. It's more that they lack the conscious awareness to be able to feel anything. Because they lack genuine empathy. So they won't have that feeling that other people have. They won't really feel any guilt or remorse. And they will just be viewing the situation in terms of how it impacts their image or power. That's what they will be more preoccupied with, rather than feeling, and this is how. It doesn't matter how wonderful a narcissist image is, or how much power they have. They're still miserable. They're still angry. They're still not satisfied. Because that's just it. You really think that someone can do those things to you and just move on without a care and be happy in another situation? They can't. There's no way that someone could treat you that way, not feel anything, and then feel something somewhere else. It just doesn't happen. It may appear that way, but it isn't genuine. Because if they feel anything, they would have felt something for you. They would have cared when they were hurting you. But they didn't. And in fact, if you ever do confront a narcissist on the things they've done to you, how do they react? They rage at you. They lash out verbally, emotionally, or even physically. They may even seek revenge by undermining or sabotaging you. So they don't ever feel bad for you. They don't ever feel anything. The only thing they can feel is when they can make someone think that they're something other than who they actually are. That's the only time they get to feel any sense of relief from their pain. When they can convince you or someone else that they're not who they really are. That's what gives them a thrill. That's what gives them their deepest delight. Because they know they're not wanted. They know that nobody's going to value someone like that. Someone who does these things to people. Someone who acts in that way. Of course they know that. So there's no way that anyone can see them or want to connect to them or be around them. And that the narcissist can feel good about that. They can't. They can only feel good by deceiving people. And of course, that's why all of their time and energy, their entire life is focused on manipulating and deceiving people for that reason. Because that's the only time they're going to feel anything. When they're deceiving people. And they're even lying to themselves. That's how it seems so convincing. Because they're deceiving themselves. They're gaslighting themselves. And many of them do actually believe in their own inflated self-image. They convince themselves that it's real. Just as when they abuse you, they convince themselves that they're justified or that they are the true victim. And many of them, they really believe it. And of course, this is why they have a lack of growth and arrested emotional development. Because, here's the thing, and I've said this before, accountability is the key to our success. If you take accountability in life, you will grow. And you will grow a lot. Narcissists do not grow because they don't take accountability. So then they struggle to learn from their behavior because they're unwilling to acknowledge their flaws or to seek meaningful change. So without that consistent effort and self-reflection, which they resist, they never grow. Nothing ever changes for them. The way that they were with you when they were abusing you, that's the way they're always going to be. In most situations, nearly all situations. Because it's very rare that a narcissist is ever going to take accountability and make the necessary changes. And Same thing even with those who just have narcissistic traits. They're never going to look within and think that there's anything wrong with them, because it's just all about themselves, and they don't care about anyone else. And of course, it could be a horrible experience for you to go through this with the narcissist. It can be very confusing, and it should be confusing. You should be confused about it, and that's how you've got to see it, because why would you think that you deserve abuse? Why would you feel like it's justified for you to be treated that way? Sometimes they will try and convince you. They will try and make you think that you're a bad person and as though you deserve to be abused. But you really do not deserve to be abused. No one deserves to be abused. We all deserve love and respect. So again, it may be confusing for you, and you may experience self-doubt. You may begin to blame yourself, because you will experience trauma as a result of the manipulation tactics that they employ. But by recognizing their patterns of behavior, it can help you to recognize the cycle of abuse and then focus on your healing. The truth is that initially, after the narcissist has abused you, and then they've gone off and they're with their new supply, they may be feeling a temporary sense of satisfaction or power, but it's not genuine happiness. And these emotions are in fact just fleeting feelings of superiority, control, or validation. So it's not lasting. And of course, that's why they then move on to a new supply, who they can then idealize and devalue. And it's also why, after a certain amount of time, they may then come back to hoover you for more supply, because this is constantly fleeting within them. They can't generate it from within. This is why they're so dominating and controlling. Again, the best that it gets for them is just momentary satisfaction. And even then, it's nothing like the satisfaction and fulfillment that we can experience in life as relatively healthy people. So for these narcissists, with their controlling and dominating behavior, they may derive a sense of pleasure or accomplishment from that, only because it reinforces their false belief in their own superiority. So it's really any time that they feel like they're anything other than themselves. Well, of course, as for us, what brings us the most joy, what makes us feel the most comfortable and secure, is when we just get to feel like ourselves. It's when we just get to be ourselves. It's the opposite for the narcissist, and this is why, no matter what you did for them, it was never enough. There was never a moment where you could just really connect to them, because you're trying to connect to the real person, and they hate who they are. They know that no one would ever want the person that they are, the things that they do. So the best they get once you figure out what you're dealing with is to control and dominate you, and to just try and get you on that wavelength to agree with their sense of superiority. Because they know after that you're not going to admire them unless they can find a way to put you back in to the love bombing. But yeah, when they can get you to react emotionally, they see it as evidence of their influence. They see it as a validation of their power, which momentarily boosts their ego. And they need this because deep down they're very insecure. They may seem confident on the outside, but they're actually deeply insecure. And their abusive behavior, it stems from a need to protect their fragile self-esteem. This is why they will abuse you and manipulate you to no end, use you as a source of supply, mistreat you, show no guilt, no remorse, and then just run off with a new supply and flaunt them in front of you. They do all of this to protect their own fragile self-esteem. And yeah, well, they're abusing you, or initially when they're with a new supply and they're flaunting this to you, they're using it to upset you. Initially, yeah, it may give them a high. It may give them a little thrill, a rush of adrenaline, a bit of excitement, amusement, entertainment, a distraction, where they get to feel like there's something other than themselves as they entertain this delusion, and they get you to validate the shared fantasy. Yes, it may make them feel good initially, but it's only a matter of time until they then experience restlessness, a constant need to seek new sources of validation, where they will then begin devaluing the new supply, and they may even re-idealize you. Because, I mean, of course, abuse is not going to address the root of their insecurities. Just by abusing you, it's not going to sustain them. It's not going to make them better. And in fact, it actually makes them a lot worse, because it's only fueling their disorder. It's making them more and more mentally ill. It's disconnecting themselves more and more from themselves. And they're just stuck in a vicious cycle where all they can really do is just deny, project, blame shift, and gaslight, which just worsens their condition even more, because if there's one thing they're not doing, it's reflecting on themselves. They're never looking in the mirror. If they were to do that, if they were to take accountability, then they could actually make the necessary changes. They could improve. And they could experience long-term happiness and satisfaction instead of just feeding off you. But yeah, all is not well for the narcissist and their new supply. They are disconnected from genuine happiness. They lack the emotional depth that is required for genuine happiness because they struggle to form authentic connections. And this is how you could never connect to them. And they could never connect to you. It was all just superficial initially. It was about just the external validation. And that's what their happiness depended on. But there was no emotional depth. You couldn't connect to them. And it caused you to become frustrated. Maybe you even lost interest in them. And then they began to turn against you. They began to devalue you. Because that's how it is for them. They don't get to experience true happiness. For them, it's just external validation. It's superficial. It's on the surface. Which means that it really has very little to actually do with them. It's more just about what they present to people, rather than it going deep and being about the person that they actually are as the result of the things that they have done in their lives. And this is why with them it's just all about control. And when they lose control, they may feel anger or rage, or they may feel shame if their behavior is exposed. So the things that they did to you, they don't really just get to walk off and just forget about it and move on with another person and be happy. It doesn't work that way. After the things they did to you, they may have experienced a short-lived sense of gratification, but they're not going to experience lasting happiness, because their behavior creates a cycle of dysfunction, and it is the very thing that prevents them from finding true emotional fulfillment. And if you just joined, you may be thinking, that's great, but why is it that the narcissist is posting the new supply on social media, and they're smiling and laughing and they seem so happy, as though they've just forgotten about you? And what I would say to that is, don't believe everything that you see. Because remember, initially with a narcissist, you believed everything you saw in them. You believed that that was the real them. And then what happened? You got fooled, you got tricked, you got abused by them. Because initially you thought that was the real them. And then they revealed to you that that wasn't really who they are. And yet, now that you see them with a new source, you assume that this time it is real, as though it was just something wrong with you. Don't underestimate all of the things that you did for them. All of the times that you tried to make them happy. You gave them chance after chance, and what did they do? They just threw it back in your face. You really think someone like that is going to move on and be happy with someone else? Of course not. They can't just treat you that way and then move on and be happy. It doesn't work that way. So what you're seeing with a narcissist is just an illusion. It's just a deceptive outward appearance rather than actual genuine happiness. Just as what other people may have seen with you and the narcissist initially. It may have seemed like you were so happy, because that's just the honeymoon phase. It's the love bombing. At the beginning of a relationship, narcissists idealize their new supply. They shower them with attention and affection because they want to secure that source of supply. And of course, because the new source doesn't know what they're dealing with, just as you didn't know what you were dealing with at the beginning, the new source validates the narcissist. The new source fulfills the narcissist's immediate need for admiration and attention, which makes the narcissist feel powerful and desired. And they can keep it going like that, as long as they can maintain that facade. And especially if there's other people watching, if you're seeing it and they know you're seeing it on social media, you can see how they're projecting this happiness and perfection in the relationship. It fuels them to keep going. And it makes the narcissist look even better to the new supply, because you're fueling it. You're still giving them a supply. You're still giving them that negative supply. So it just delays the inevitable. It delays the devaluation phase. And it makes it look good to you. It makes it look good to you, so then you feel like they've just moved on after they've hurt you, as though they've just gotten away with it. So they're getting that negative supply from you, so they can keep giving positive supply to the new supply. Or rather, the new supply can keep giving positive supply and seeing in the narcissist, validating the image. So that just keeps that going. It keeps the cycle continuing. So really, if you just pull away, if you just stop looking at their social media, if you just stop being the backbone of their new relationship, if you stop validating it, if you just stop being there, observing it, watching it, it's all just going to come crashing down. And then they may just come back to hoover you anyway. That's typically what happens. That's what you will find if you just leave it alone, if you forget about them. But as long as you're thinking in your mind that they've moved on and they're happy, they will display that to you on social media. If you're willing to believe in it, that's great for them. It gives them supply. But it doesn't mean that's what's really happening. It's all fake. The new supply does not know the narcissist yet. Or in some cases, the new supply could be narcissistic as well. They could be just as toxic. So maybe the narcissist is getting drunk every night with a new supply. Maybe they're engaged in all sorts of immoral activities. And while for you may have been repulsed by that, you may have not liked it, the new supply doesn't mind. The new supply accepts it because they're just as toxic. And maybe they like getting drunk, maybe they like doing drugs. Maybe they like targeting people outside of their relationship because it makes them both feel good. But also at the same time, when there's two narcissists in a relationship, they do fight each other for domination and control. To where sometimes one narcissist may be dominant, the other one may be submissive, and then they can switch it around as well. It can change. It's not just one way the entire time. When two narcissists are together, and even if they do move on and they have a new supply who's not a narcissist, at some point that person's going to figure them out. Or they're just going to get fed up of the mistreatment. Or the narcissist will just get bored of them. So there's all sorts of things that can happen. But the reality is, with a narcissist involved in anything, doesn't matter what it is, when a narcissist is involved in anything, it's not going to succeed. It's not going to go well. It's not going to produce any fruits. It won't. Because narcissists are death. They're like zombies. They don't attend to themselves. They don't self-reflect. They don't introspect. There's no life inside of them. It's just a void. So essentially they're black holes walking around wherever they go. Whether it's in a relationship or a family dynamic. You've just got this void going around everywhere. How can that produce anything good? It's just sucking the life out of everything. It's killing everything. Because it's just a void. So wherever there's a narcissist, there's not going to be anything good. Same thing with people with narcissistic traits. I mean, as long as they're self-absorbed or they lack empathy, they're not going to produce anything good. It's just not going to happen. And Dr. Ramani said in one of her videos, the better a relationship looks on social media, the more toxic it's likely to be in real life. And I agree with that. Because that's typically what these types of people like to do, is they try to compensate for how things actually are, by making it look a lot better than what it really is. So just because something looks good, just because they present it well, it doesn't mean that it is good. As Michelle Neves mentioned in one of her recent videos, it's essentially the same thing as a car salesman taking a really old car that has all sorts of problems and just giving it a paint job. It's not going to make the car any better. It may make it look better. It may make it look more appealing to people who want to buy it. But it's still just that same old car with all of the problems. It just has a new paint job. And this is what narcissists like to do. They just focus on the surface, on the outside of things. And that's how you ended up with them. That's how you got manipulated, by a deceptive outward appearance. So never mind what it looks like on the outside. That doesn't mean anything. If anything, it could just mean that it's actually really toxic, as you found it to be once you're involved with them. It looks good on the outside. But once you got deeply involved, what happened? It was very abusive. It was very toxic. So again, initially there's the honeymoon phase. There's the love bombing, where initially the supply is fulfilling the narcissist's need for admiration and attention, which makes the narcissist feel powerful and desired. It makes them feel like they're something other than themselves, which continues the facade. It fuels it to keep going. And at this time, the narcissist may become competitive. They may become vengeful. They may weaponize the new supply. Everything becomes a weapon with a narcissist. So they may use the new supply as a weapon. They may flaunt this new relationship to provoke jealousy, hurt, or a sense of inadequacy in you. And of course, they're also using the new supply to maintain their image, because they want everyone to see them as something desirable and successful, especially after a breakup. They want everyone to think that it was you. They want everyone to think that you are the problem. So of course they're going to go off and have this new supply and maintain this image of desirability and success. And simultaneously they will flaunt it to provoke jealousy or pain in you. But this is all exaggerated. And maybe not just exaggerated, it could be entirely fabricated. It could just all be just an invention, just something they've made up to make you feel bad and to make themselves look good. I mean, just how it was with you. When you got involved with a narcissist, how did you feel about that when you were with them? This image that they were presenting to the world, was the happiness exaggerated? Or was it just entirely fake? Just a fabrication? Then you'll realize that that's what they do. It can be an extremely toxic, dysfunctional environment, and they can still just keep pretending. They can act like there's nothing wrong. That's not a healthy, happy person, because if it was, a healthy person is going to notice the toxicity more than anyone else. They're not just going to overlook it, they're going to see it. Just think about it. If you're the type of person who takes good care of yourself, and you look after your home, You got everything put in its place, everything the way you like it to be. When you maybe go into someone else's home and it's not like that, you're going to be more aware of it compared to somebody else, such as their neighbors who maybe live next door. And maybe they don't take care of their home as well as you do. So they're going to be more used to it. It's going to be more familiar to them. But for you, it won't be, because if you're from a different area and you take care of yourself at your home in a different way, so then you're more attuned to it. And you may be more attuned to it as well, because if you're the type of person who practices self-love and self-care, it's going to be very repulsive, very distasteful when you come across someone who has been neglecting themselves, who has been neglecting their mental health. You're going to pick up on it. So this is how it is with narcissists. And this is how when you're in it, when you're around them, you don't notice just how bad it is. Because it's like the boiling frog syndrome. You've been in it for a certain amount of time, then gradually they turn the heat up. You don't even realize how toxic, how harmful it is. You may not even be aware of it at the time. But then when you come out of it and you look back, especially after you've been practicing self-care, you've been living better, then you realize just how bad it is. But then, of course, time goes by and you may improve, you may become better, healthier without them. And you may forget, you may minimize just how bad the abuse was. You may forget about it as though it wasn't as bad as what you thought. And that's because when you're no longer in it and you haven't been in it for such a long time. But yeah, that's just it. I mean, a healthy person is going to be attuned to this. They're going to be aware of it. Of course, straight away, they're going to be like, what is this? What's going on here? It's not going to feel right to them. It's going to make them very sick. Now, people who are toxic and unhealthy, it's going to seem normal to them. And this is how you may notice the longer you were with the narcissist, the more it became normal to you. And the more the abuse began to escalate. Because you began to become unhealthy just like them. A healthy person cannot exist in that environment. You start to become more and more like them, or more and more tolerant of them. And that's really it. You know, the narcissist, it seems like they're happy with the new supply. They're just comfortable in their own toxicity. They're comfortable with that. It's like they have a disease and they're comfortable with it. They live with it. They just ignore it, the symptoms. And sometimes so do we after a certain amount of time being around them. It becomes normal to us and we're taught that it's normal, but it's not. But they're not happy. Don't mistake that. Don't mistake someone who feels nothing and is comfortable in toxicity. I mean, just think about how sick, how messed up someone has to be. If you can find pleasure in toxic behavior, you can find pleasure in abusing, hurting someone. Just think about how sick and twisted that is. Just think about how mentally ill they must be to not feel anything, to feel comfortable in doing that. So they're just not well. They're just crazy. They've lost their minds. They're completely out of it. It's not that they're happy, they're lunatics. They're very unwell. And that's how you've got to start to see it. You need to see this from a different perspective. You should be thinking, hold on a minute. How can someone who just did all of that to me, they treated me that way, how can they go off and then be happy? Is that normal? Is that healthy? No, it's absolutely crazy. It's completely unhealthy for someone to do that. They can't just treat you that way and go off and be happy and healthy. You know what would be a good sign of good health? It would be if they did those things to you and they felt really bad about it and they did their best to make amends. That would be a sign of health. But they don't do that. They neglect you. They just pretend like nothing happened. And that just reveals just how messed up they are, just how unhealthy they are. It means that they're comfortable with those behaviors, that they don't see anything wrong with themselves. And someone's got to be really messed up to do those types of things and not feel like there's anything wrong with them, not feel the need to change anything about themselves. So that's how you know that they are seriously unwell. They're really unwell, really unhealthy. They're so unhealthy that they just can't even see how unhealthy they are. It's really that bad. It's like they're really sick and they don't even know that they are sick. I mean, at least if they had some self-awareness, if they could see that there's a problem, and if they had the desire to change, it would be better. And that's a sign of improvement. That's a sign of health. But with them, it's just complete denial. It's just blaming you for everything. And I see that these are really sick people. They're very sick. They're so sick that they can't even see. It's like they're not even aware that they have this sickness. They can't even detect it in themselves. And that's how you've got to think about it. That's how you've got to think. It's like, essentially, it's like someone who has a disease and they're being treated in a clinic or a hospital, and they just think there's nothing wrong with them. They just run out of there, or maybe they run out of a mental institution, and then they're just having a great time. They're just thinking they're happy. Does that mean they're happy? Does that mean they're healthy? Of course not. Just because they've just thought for themselves that they're fine, and they just blamed it all on someone else, that doesn't mean that anything's changed for them. It doesn't mean that they're better. It doesn't mean that they're happy. They are completely delusional. And that's how you've got to see it. They're very, very sick people. But of course, they want to maintain their image. They want to look good because it's all about supply for them. Never mind about how messed up, how broken they are inside. As long as it looks good, because that's how it was for them in their childhood. It didn't matter what they were going through. It didn't matter if they were miserable. As long as they looked good for their parents. As long as they maintained the family image. Never mind about how they felt inside. And of course that made them feel validated by their narcissistic parents. So they're just seeking validation, supply. There could be all sorts of things going on inside of them that they neglect, they ignore. Or they just rage at you. And they just carry on with it. They just act like nothing's wrong. And of course for us that was very difficult to do. We can't just pretend. Because we're not as sick as them. Even after everything we went through with them, we're not that sick, we're not that toxic. We didn't let ourselves become like that, and that's how we have this awareness that something's not right, that this isn't good. They don't have that awareness though. Because for narcissists, it's all about just everything being fresh and new. They're very excited with novelty and the thrill of a new conquest, which makes them happy initially. And of course, that's their idea of happiness. It won't be the same type of happiness that we can experience. But everything is just superficial with them. Any relationship that they have will lack depth because they haven't worked on themselves. They don't self-reflect. They haven't gone within. They're doing anything they can to distract themselves from themselves because it doesn't feel good in there. And this is why it never them. Other than when you're propping up the false self, you're letting them be on this pedestal, then they feel good about themselves, but then that's not really them. And this is why once you're no longer giving them the desired attention or admiration, then the narcissist becomes dissatisfied. And then they become abusive. And this is what happens with the new supply. So the new supply is no longer providing the attention or admiration to the narcissist after the idealization phase. And then that's when the narcissist becomes dissatisfied. That's when they turn against their own new supply and they become abusive. Just as they were abusive with you. And this cycle just repeats because they're just constantly relying and depending on the attention and admiration the narcissistic supply, instead of going within and realizing that they have a problem, instead of attending to themselves. And this is how this cycle just continues. Because they're constantly just masking their insecurity. They're avoiding their emptiness. Rather than going within the emptiness. It's too scary for them to do that. To deal with their shadow self. So instead they rely on external sources to validate their self-worth. And yeah, initially it does give them a temporary distraction from their internal void. Because it boosts their ego. It bolsters their fragile self-esteem. But it's fleeting because it isn't genuine, it isn't real. It doesn't address their core insecurities. So, it may seem like happiness, but all is not well with the new supply. It's a lot worse. And it's going to continue getting worse for them. It's very unhealthy, it's very toxic. I mean, just think about it. How can someone treat you that way and then be happy in a new situation after they harmed you? I mean, for someone to get to a point where they're seeking to harm someone, they've got to be pretty messed up in the mind. They'd have to be. I mean, just think about a time in your life where maybe you insulted someone. You lashed out at someone. Were you in the right state of mind? Were you feeling good about yourself? The odds are that you weren't at that time. And of course, us as empaths, I mean, typically we will feel guilt. We will feel bad about our actions, and we will go within. We will self-reflect and try to be better. But that's not going to happen with the narcissistic people. They're going to deny it. They're going to justify it. They're going to blame you for the things that they said or did to you. They're going to make it out like it was all your fault. They're not going to take accountability, and this is why they never change. They never improve. So for them to treat you that way and then to go off and act like they're happy and to flaunt this to you after how they treated you, it's just really unhealthy. It's really toxic. It's not a good thing that they appear happy. That's not a good thing for them at all. But they're hoping that it will manipulate you. And, I mean, initially they did manipulate you. They love bombed you. They made you think that they were these kind, loving, happy, healthy people. And that's how they got you involved with them. So then they assume that it's going to work on you again. Only this time when they flaunt the new supply. But the truth is, I mean, narcissists, they don't experience genuine lasting happiness. Any emotional highs that they have are temporary, and they're always dependent on external factors, such as getting admiration from the new supply. So over time, that same cycle of idealization, devaluation, and discard that you experienced is going to play out with a new supply. They're going to do the same thing with them. They're going to devalue them and eventually discard them just as they did with you. So their happiness, it's just a performance. It's an orchestration. And it is designed to manipulate you and to protect their ego, to make them feel important. But it's very shallow, it's very superficial, because true fulfillment comes from internal growth and authentic connections. But of course, as we know, are two things that narcissists typically avoid. So, all is not well with the narcissist and the new supply. And just don't worry about them. Don't worry about what they're doing. Don't look on their social media. They will use it to manipulate you. They will use it to give you this facade, to make you think that despite how they treated you, now they're actually living their best lives. They're so much happier without you. No, they're not. They can't just treat you that way and move on and be happy. It's never going to work that way for anyone. Not without self-reflection and internal growth. They're never going to go within. They're never going to do the work. They're never even going to care about it. They're always going to be focused on just these external appearances. So just forget about them. Don't worry about what you're seeing on social media, the narcissist with their new supply. Focus on going no contact. Cut off communication with them if you can. Because that will then create space for your healing, and it will protect you from further manipulation. And of course, as you're doing now, watching these videos, educating yourself on narcissistic abuse, this will help you to make sense of what you went through. It can help you with the cognitive dissonance, the trauma bond, and it can help you to recognize that their actions reflect their issues and not your worth. And that's an important point to remember. Their actions, their behaviors, the way that they've treated you, they want you to think, and they will teach you that this is a reflection of your worth, but it's not. Their actions are a reflection of their issues. Their actions are not a reflection of your worth. And this is how, when you're dealing with a narcissist, it seems like you're not worth anything to them, as though they can't see your value for something. But then you can go somewhere else. You could be around other people who get to know you, and you could be worth something to them. Now, how is that possible? It's possible because their actions, their mistreatment of you, was never a reflection of your worth anyway. Although they wanted you to think that it was actually a reflection of their issues, which they projected onto you, making you believe that it had something to do with your worth. So again, just go into contact, cut them off if you can, and allow yourself to grieve the loss of the relationship. You may need to mourn the version of the narcissist that they presented to you in the idealization phase. And with that may come a lot of emotions: anger, sadness, confusion, but even relief. And this is why journaling can be very helpful. It can help you to process your thoughts and emotions, to where you can then rebuild your sense of self. Because narcissists will erode your self-esteem. So you need to take the steps to rediscover yourself and to nurture your identity. Reconnect with your old hobbies or passions that you may have neglected by being around them. And maybe make a list of your strengths and achievements, the things that you value and like about yourself. This can help to rebuild your self-esteem. And practice daily affirmations. Maybe every morning, every evening before you go to sleep. Just look in the mirror and read out a positive affirmation, such as, I am worthy of love and respect. And make eye contact with yourself when you say that. And really believe it, really mean it. These I am affirmations, affirming this to yourself, this can really help to rebuild your confidence and your self-esteem. And of course, it can be helpful to seek therapy, support groups. Book a one-on-one with me on my website, narcsurvivor.co.uk. I'm available for you. And after you spend all this time focusing on the narcissist, worrying about them, now it's time to come back to yourself. Focus on self-care. Of course, when around the narcissist, everything you do yourself is selfish. They want you to make your life about them. But once you've gone no contact, once you've set boundaries, once you've cut them off, you can now come back to yourself and focus on your physical health. Exercise, eat well, prioritize your sleep. Mindfulness, yoga, meditation, deep breathing exercises, and creative outlets. This can be very healing, such as art, music, or writing. This can help you to process the emotions. And as you can see what I'm doing right now, when I'm making these videos, when I'm talking about narcissists and abusive relationships, this is a creative outlet for me. This helps me to process my emotions. It helps me to heal and become better. So yeah, set and maintain boundaries. Avoid comparing yourself to the new supply. Give yourself time. And instead of seeing a relationship as a loss, View it as an opportunity to grow and become wiser. Reflect on what you've learned about yourself, your values, and what you will no longer tolerate in relationships. I hope you found this video helpful so far. If you have any questions, let me know in the live chat down below. I will read them out and respond to them. Also hit that thumbs up button if you haven't yet. Let's work together to get this message out there. I've got my YouTube plaque behind me that I achieved 3 years ago for 100,000 subscribers. And it should be now next year, 2025, that we achieve 200,000 subscribers. So we've come a long way together in spreading the awareness of this disorder. So how's everyone doing in the live chat? Please ignore the trolls, I am hiding them. The trolls are not here for help. Same with the narcissist. They all have the same things in common. They're just seeking validation, control, and a sense of superiority. And it's because they feel invalidated by seeing us grow and heal together. They feel very insecure, that's why they're controlling. They're trying to control you. And they feel inferior. So that's just it. It's just validation, control, and superiority. That's what they're looking for. And they're hoping that you will provide them with that. Because naturally, I mean, we are more just accepting tolerable people. We give people a chance. Goddess of Beauty says, I'm crying. You just annihilated the narcissist in the most calm way possible. I wish I could speak like that when I deal with him, but I just get so upset and say the most hurtful things. I understand Goddess of Beauty. I mean, this is the most common thing among victims and survivors of narcissistic abuse, is the anger. I mean, naturally, of course, when you're being abused, you become reactive. You become defensive. You're trying to protect yourself from further abuse. And this is why psychologist Ross Rosenberg, he created his grey rock technique, observe to absorb, to prevent us from being so reactive, over emotional, angry. Because of course they like it when they can provoke you. They like to set you into the drama battle so that they can then point the finger at you and call you crazy, just for you reacting to the abuse. And that's just more gaslighting. I mean, of course, if someone abuses you, it's going to destabilize you. If you're normal and healthy, it's going to affect you. You're going to have a response to it. It's going to upset you. It's going to make you angry. So it really reveals something wrong with them. That they can engage in these behaviors and they're okay with it. They're okay to treat you in this way and to expect you to not react that way and to call you too sensitive. So it really just reveals their flaws more than it does yours. Because you're reacting the way that you should react. Of course you're going to be angry. Of course you're going to be upset. Of course the abuse is going to destabilize you. How could abuse make anyone better? Even for the narcissist, it fuels their disorder. But that's only immediately afterwards. And then gradually it has a negative effect on them as well. John Tracy says, heard no sirens since you wear earplugs, like they know. Yeah, you will notice. I mean, if you're paying close attention, you will see that in the patterns in my videos. I mean, there's so many videos on here now that I've made. But yeah, the last few days, you will hear constant sirens and car horns outside. But now, since I've started wearing my earphones, you won't have heard it much in this video. Because yes, they are typically aware. And, narcissists and gang stalkers, they're very similar. Their goal is to destabilize you. It's to keep you off balance and to call you crazy. I mean, because initially, they portray themselves like they were like you. Like they were about being better, growth, improvement. That was a mask. And so they want to make it out like you're the crazy one. Now think about it. Why is that like their go-to tactic? Why is it always the first thing they try to do when they realize you're not with them, you're not on the same page? Then it's all just about gaslighting you. You're crazy. Something's wrong with you. You're unstable. Where does this come from? Where do they get that from? It's because it's a projection. That's how they feel about themselves by being around you. And that's why they're trying to paint you in that way. It's because that's how it is for them. Deep down, they know that they are crazy, but they're in denial. So it comes up, it surfaces in their mind, they feel that way. They don't want to feel that way, so they disown it and they assign it to you. And honestly, if you are the target of a smear campaign or of gang stalking, and everyone's calling you crazy, everyone say that you're unstable, you must really have things together. You must be really strong to be able to tolerate all of that. And of course, it makes sense that they're all calling you crazy, because they're all projecting their own traits onto you. I mean, just think about it, how warped their minds must be to think that a bunch of people can smear you and gang stalk you, and yet still they get a sense of validation and superiority. How could they think that way when there's so many of them and just one of you? It just shows how warped their thinking is. Because when they're in their grandiosity, they can justify anything. But that's just it. I mean, why does it take such a mass of people to destabilize one target? But it's good to see there's more viewers in this one, because the last few days I had some issues with the signal, and today I tried to do a video at the park, and unfortunately I didn't have any signal there. I mean, in all honesty, this area, this place, it's really not good for my work at all. I mean, from what I'm seeing, when I look back at my old videos, it seems like my work was much better in Malaysia and even in Indonesia. I had much better videos back then, and I was getting more views back then as well. But I'm going to see how it goes. I mean, I'm going to keep working hard on my content, and even if things don't go well, if I don't make too much money from it, enough income so that I can continue doing what I'm doing, then I may just go back to the UK, and I may just start again and really revise all of my content. And I've already got some ideas. And actually, many of you won't know this, but just a couple of years ago, I had one video that I reposted from TikTok. It was someone else's video, but it got me 1.7 million views. It went viral. And of course, taking that with that kind of concept, I can really see how I can go mainstream with that certain type of content, among some others as well. So I definitely have some ideas, and I don't think there's any reason, why I couldn't rebuild and have a viral channel again. Because of course, back in the day, I mean, God, I remember I used to get, I would have videos getting like 30,000 views in just 24 hours on YouTube. And then even several hundred thousands of views. And it was really just bringing the awareness. It was helping so many people. I mean, who knows how many lives these videos have changed. And, that's really my main focus, though. If I'm ever going to do something, any new projects, it's always going to be about providing value to people. And, that was my goal initially. I mean, originally, I was kind of thinking about doing music and DJing, like producing songs, remixes. But then I found out about Narcissist, and I went with that, because that was something I was really passionate about, and I still am. But yeah, if I do get involved in any new projects, it will be more about the value that I can provide. That's always going to be my focus, rather than doing something that may be trendy, it may be popular, but it's not really helping anyone. Because I really feel like that's my mission in this world, is to help people. I feel like with everything that I've been through, I am quite gifted in that. I do feel like I do have the power to heal. So that's what I'm aiming to do with whatever I do. It's always going to be about just helping people giving solutions, solving problems, because that's just what I do best. And honestly, I am quite uncomfortable when it's just all about me and it's not, it's not more vulnerable. Again, it's quite late here. Got myself some vegan protein. Ready for the gym. Weightlifting gloves. Working out in the gym several days a week. Doing what I can to stay strong, healthy. As you should be too. But maybe not if you're fresh out of the relationship. I mean, you might want to take some time first to rest. I mean, I know what it's like to be around narcissists, and if you've been living with a narcissist for a long time, or when you get that chance to move out and to be by yourself, you may just want to take a week out just to sleep all day, just to regain your strength before you even think about going to the gym. Because that's it can really drain you, it can weaken you. But yeah, I really enjoyed sharing this message with you. Just know that all is not well with the narcissist and the new supply. Everything is not as it seems. They may seem happy, but it's just a deceptive outward appearance. They're not really doing good. So yeah, if you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. I read your comments every day. Hit subscribe and click all notifications to be notified when I go live again. Donations are greatly appreciated, no matter how small. You're welcome to donate to my PayPal, which is paypal.me/Narc Survivor. And if you would like to book a one-on-one coaching session with me, you could just go to my website, which is narcsurvivor.co.uk. And also check out my Instagram. I posted a few cat videos recently. There was one video I posted about synchronized cats, where the cats are moving their heads in a synchronized way. I think it got almost 20,000 plays. So you can see that on Instagram and so much more. It's Narc Survivor YouTube. Alright, thank you all, and I will talk to you soon.